But the cost of living continued to rise. We're all feeling it. The weight of debt started to add up and adding a lot of stress in many people's lives. Well, Mike Crofts, he's also known as Money Coach Mike, has developed a system for people struggling with excess household debt, and he's here to share his practical tips. Hey, Mike, welcome to 700 Club Canada.
Hello, hello. Great to be here.
Well, Mike, you were a touring musician and session player at one point. How did you end up in the financial coaching field?
I learned a lot about money on tour.
Mm.
Got connected with some mentors who started to show me how money worked, how to get out of debt, how to use money for you and to be a blessing to other people. So that's where I learned a lot about money. But I also saw a lot of people on tour would have to leave their dream because they weren't doing well with their finances.
Right. Well, okay, so you talk about being relieved of debt, but you, like many others, also believe that you should borrow money to achieve wealth. So how do you navigate that dynamic, and what is the challenge for a lot of people in this area?
Yeah. One of the things that I often asked was, why not borrow money to build some wealth? And back in the day here, and a lot of my mentors would show me the follies and the mistakes that could happen with borrowed money. And best case scenario, borrowed money works. Worst case scenario, it messes up your life. You get stuck. You start to get stressed out around finances. And so they showed me a different way on how to start to build some wealth with money that I actually made and had, and mostly by getting out of debt, car payments, credit card payments, all of that stuff, to use that money to now build wealth is what they started to teach me. And now we're teaching Canadians how to do that.
Well, that's really, in many ways, kind of countercultural, isn't it, Mike? And I know
Very
some of your work, like your passion is to see people live debt free. That seems like, what? Debt free? Is that even a value? Why is debt considered maybe normal in this culture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 78% of Canadians live in paycheck to paycheck. And we live in a society where debt's everywhere. I mean, I was at the airport the other day and credit card advertisements were everywhere. And so what's happened as a culture, and this has only happened over a couple of generations, is we've accepted the idea that borrowed money is a way of life here. And I've been debt-free now for 10 years. And I can tell you this, having your own cash to pay for things like a car or vacations or invest and build some wealth and give is a lot less stressful than trying to do it on credit.
Yeah. Well, and of course, you anchor all of your ideas in the Bible. And so the Bible actually says quite a bit about debt. What have you learned in your discovery and exploration of the biblical truth about how we should navigate this thing called debt?
Yeah, the Bible has a lot to say about money in general. From what I understand, there's thousands of scriptures around money here. And when I read scripture and study the Bible, my understanding of it is we want to have an emergency fund. Money put aside for a rainy day, for an unexpected event. We want to do our best to live debt free. Now, when I say debt free, I'm talking consumer debt free. We're talking credit cards, that type of stuff. I understand, these days, trying to buy a home debt free for a lot of people it would be a challenge. And so we're not talking about, mortgages, but we're talking like, 20% credit cards and stuff like that. And the Bible is very clear, about getting out of debt, or if you're in debt, getting out as fast as you can, to get out there. And then from there, having an emergency fund, having savings, investing, being generous, which is probably the biggest thing that I find a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people who want to live out generosity, but their credit card bills unfortunately take 20% of their income. And so the generosity aspect doesn't happen for a lot of people. But yeah, according to scripture, we get out of debt, we have an emergency fund, we have a plan for our money every month, and then we live generously with it. We change lives, and we impact this world.
So you're suggesting there's actually financial freedom is a possibility this side of heaven? Is that what you're saying?
100%. Yes, 100%. Absolutely.
How would you describe financial freedom, Mike?
I would say, the ability to not have to worry about money. To be in a position in your life here where when an emergency happens, because it's going to happen, right? I have emergencies happen in my life. The car breaks, the roof leaks, but to be able to not be stressed out with money and to have a good plan where you're blessing other people, as well as taking care of your family. And when I say taking care of your family, I mean the next generation, teaching this stuff to your kids so they don't have to struggle, having even maybe an inheritance for your kids so that they can continue to do what God's plan, or I should say the plan that God has on your life and your family's life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our viewers watching would say, oh, that sounds fantastic. But they make a faulty assumption. And the faulty assumption is, well, you must have come into a windfall, or you must have figured out some secrets that is not accessible to me. So those watching, just give us a little bit of hope. Like, because I think a lot of people are just, they feel so overwhelmed by it. They just can't even imagine or take the first step towards relieving debt. What would you say to them right now?
I would say it's possible for you. It's going to start with the belief that it can happen for you. I've talked to a lot of people who feel defeated, and what I've noticed is everyone that gets debt free. What we've done is last year is our clients, we paid off over $2.4 million of debt. Right. And a lot of people are your average Canadian, your average person making an average income, 20, 30, 40, 50, even $100,000 of debt. And the one thing that happened for each of them is they believe that it could happen for them. And then they start to work a step-by-step plan. And what that included was, number one, is doing a monthly budget, seeing where their money was going instead of wondering where it was going, right? They had a plan for that. Two, they got focused on a game plan to pay down the debt. We teach the debt snowball. And so that's the plan that's worked really well for a lot of people here. And so what they do is they focus on that first debt, pay minimums on everything else, and put as much towards that first debt. For some of them, they're able to negotiate interest rates. Some are able to bring in a little bit of extra income to get that started here. But what happens is over time, that debt starts to snowball, which is why we call it debt snowball, and they pay off their first credit card. And then they do their next, and then they do their next, right? And over time, and it takes, listen, it isn't like this is going to happen overnight. But most people, I would say the majority of Canadians, within 2 to 3 years can be consumer debt free.
And you've actually really helped. You said some really great things in that first segment. I just want to unpack a couple of them. So you said, yeah, the first is to kind of come up with a plan. So you need to kind of know where you are. It's like if you're lost in the woods, right? You need to figure out, okay, where am I, so that I can come up with a plan. So how do you help people begin? Like, what is the initial start? So someone's watching and they're like, yeah, I need this. What is my first step toward becoming debt free?
Yeah, it all starts with that dreaded B word, the budget. And what we recommend here is the reason why we talk about that budget is because it's our starting point. It lets us know how much we're going to be behind if we're behind. It lets us know how much we have left over if we're going to have money left over. And it really is that starting point and getting to that debt-free destination. And so what we do is we write down everything we plan to spend. Okay, we give it an item line there. And then what we do at the end of the month, this is where it gets a little bit different, is we sit down and we write down what we've actually spent.
Yeah.
And what I have found, here's what blows my mind, is when people do it that way, most people find an extra couple $100s more per month, because all of a sudden they said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was spending $1,000 on eating out this month.
Yeah, it's amazing how much Starbucks adds up, isn't it?
Starbucks is not cheap anymore. Right. And so they find an extra couple $100, and then boom, right there, we've got some money now to start knocking off the debt, and the snowball starts.
I think that's so helpful, Mike, because I mean, we've set up a budget. My husband and I have tried the budget thing many times, but to your point, the reality check is then how did we do at the end of the month?
Yeah.
And I think getting a reality check is the first place to start. For some people, the reality check is they are in debt, their credit card owing, they're like, what do they do then with at the end of the month? The reality is we don't have enough money coming in to what we're actually spending. What do they do with that?
Yeah, and that's reality for a lot of people here. And so what we've got to do is we've got to either find extra money or find areas we can reduce in, at least to get started here. And so, like I said, doing that cash flow plan, that budget, usually people find an extra couple $100s right there. Another thing people can do here is they can always look at their insurances. We just ran a challenge for our community, and we found most people are paying way more for insurance than they need to be. That's car insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, even sometimes life insurance is in that. And right there, we can find usually an extra $100 to $200 more right there. And they're not working any harder to do it. They're just having a couple phone calls and they can renegotiate their insurance. So that's one way. And the next thing they do is they do online tutoring with technology. These days, there's a lot of things we can do online. And so we have a lot of our clients teach ESL. And they're not experts. They just know the English language, and they make an extra 2, 3, 4. Some are even making $500 a month part-time tutoring online.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm bought in because I know from personal experience, I came from a situation where it was desperate. And I've seen God turn that around with a lot of hard work and discipline on my end. But there are still maybe some skeptics, okay, who are watching this. And so how many people have you actually seen accomplish this goal of becoming debt-free? And can maybe you share one of those amazing stories with us?
Absolutely. Again, most clients that we work with take 24 to 36 months to become debt free. That's kind of the timeline that most people can get debt free, and that's people who have $20,000, $30,000 of debt. That's even people who have $100,000 in debt. All right, and I'll give you an example of a couple we worked with. They were in their 50s. They struggled with credit card payments and debt for their whole adult life. So 30 years, and we started coaching them. It took them 18 months to pay off $120,000 of debt. Now, obviously, they raised their income a little bit to do that, but a lot of it was they got focused on their finances. For the first time in 20, 30 years, they got focused on what they wanted, where their money was going, and then we helped them raise their income a little bit. We helped them reduce their costs, their monthly costs, and took them about, I think it was just over 24 months, and they were debt free.
Hmm.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is simply amazing. Mike, you said you coach people. Where do people find your resources and what does this coaching look like?
Yeah, so we've got a great resource. It's called the 5 Shifts to Kiss Debt Goodbye for Good, and it's a training that we do here. You can go to moneycoachmike.com. It's right there. You can watch it right there, and it's going to walk you through the 5 things that we're teaching our coaching clients to do in order to get debt free here. So that's where you can find that. And then when it comes to coaching, like when we work with our clients one on one, what we have found, like I said earlier, a lot of people, it's the belief that it can happen. A lot of people don't have that belief these days. And I don't blame them because there's not a lot of references in our society where people are living debt free and wealthy and generous and, living that life there. And so a lot of our coaching, it starts with helping people believe that it can happen for them, plan a better future, start to work towards a better future. And then we walk them through the simple tools of doing that, again, that monthly budget, walking them through the best way to pay off debt, teaching them how to save an emergency fund so when the car breaks or whatever, the roof leaks, they've got money put aside so they're not falling back into debt. And then we teach them a little bit about wealth building, like saving and investing for the future. So, down the road when they hit retirement, they've got money they can retire with. And then we teach a lot about generosity. I really believe that's the missing case, or the missing key, I should say, in a lot of people's financial plan is they are not generous with their money. And generosity, everyone that I've studied, everyone that I've, that's wealthy, that I've been able to rub shoulders with and talk to and get mentored by, every single one of them talks about generosity. And that's a key point that we teach everyone, no matter if you're still in debt or out of debt, we teach people to start with generosity. And it's going to start to break that cycle of fear because when you start to give some money away and can trust that you can manage that money still, it starts to break that fear that a lot of people have in their life.
I love it. I love it. And I'm walking away today with this simple thought. It's possible if you do it God's way with God's help. And so it's possible for you. Actually, if you'd like to know more about Money Coach Mike, you can go to 700club.ca. All the information is there as well. Thank you, Mike, for being with us today.
Thank you.